The room was quiet except for the steady beeping of the machines. I sat next to my brother John, held his hand, and slowly felt his warmth fade away. It all started on September 29, 2024 with what seemed like minor symptoms. Nothing alarming at first, but after just a few days on October 4th, he was admitted to a larger hospital in LA. His last conscious day slipped away by the time I arrived at the ICU on October 8th. Then, on October 10th, his heart stopped beating. I was standing at the funeral, unable to grasp how life can change so quickly and unexpectedly. I was, and I still am in disbelief, how in just 2 weeks, my brother, who was young, 18, just about to start college, is now gone forever. John didn't know his time was running out this quickly, and neither did we. And that's the cruel paradox of life. It's fragile, yet so precious. After days, weeks, months, I came to realization that even the smallest moments hold the potential for meaning, connection, growth, all because life is fleeting. I want to ask all of you here today, how intentional are you with the moments in front of you? Today, I'd like to share what this journey of losing my brother have taught me about the importance of intentional living. So, what does it mean to be intentional? At its core, it means to make choices and take actions with conscious awareness. Well, awareness of what exactly? The unpredictability of life, the inevitability of death, and the impermanence of our time, energy, and resources. But why does living intentionally matter? It matters because it's a way to honor the preciousness of life. Well, what makes life precious? Again, it's the same three truths: the unpredictability of life, the inevitability of death, and the limited time, energy, and resources. Because think about it, if nothing ever ended, if nothing was ever finite, would anything still feel as valuable or as special? Because our moments are fleeting, because our time is finite, it helps us reallocate our energy and time to what matters the most to us, and thus live a fulfilling life. Let me share how I got to this understanding. When I was at the hospital and later at John's funeral, I was overwhelmed with so many different emotions. First, I felt numb, empty, staring at John's lifeless body, and later holding onto his ash, of how it starkly contrasted with the once vibrant person he was just a few weeks ago. And next to that emotion, I also felt anger. I was so confused to why this happened to him and how he did not get the time he deserves to live more. Amidst these emotions, I also felt something unexpected: gratitude. Families and friends, even those living 1,000 miles away, flew over to the hospital and later to the funeral, and there was so much love, care existing in that one moment, one place, that it felt so beautiful. And I was grateful that as a human being, I have the privilege to be able to feel that beauty coming from connection, care, love, and support. These emotions, grief, anger, gratitude, they didn't exist in isolation. They collided in a way that was overwhelming, yet so profoundly human. I realized there's something so sacred about simply being alive and to feel it all: the pain, the joy, and everything in between. As humans, we have this rare gift to experience life so vividly through our senses, our emotions, and our consciousness. We even have the ability to anticipate, to think, to make mistakes, learn from our interactions and connections. And living intentionally matters because it's a way to honor this ability we have as humans to experience life so vividly and so deeply. It means to choose to fully experience the moments, connections, growth, everything that makes up life. Understanding the why of intentional living is the most important step to first practicing it, because the why becomes the reason and the motivation for us to make that small shift and small changes to how we approach our everyday moments. So, how exactly do we live intentionally? It starts with 3 steps. First, you need to notice what's in your ordinary. Second, feel and recognize their preciousness. And third, approach each one of them with intention. Take a moment right now to think, what are the seemingly mundane parts of your day? Is it coming to school? Interacting with friends, teachers, parents? The reason why being intentional starts with the ordinary is because oftentimes when we experience things repetitively, it's easy for us to anticipate that we will always have them next to us, where in real life, nothing that we experience every moment is ever guaranteed, and they're more fleeting than we often realize. Let me share 3 examples to how I start to bring this intentionality to everyday moments of my life: school, media, and relationships. When I was at school, I used to sit in the class, look at the clock, wait for the time to pass by, and feel relieved when it was over. But losing my brother John completely shifted my perspective. I began to wonder, what would John do if he could relive his last years and moments in high school? How would he approach something as ordinary as school assignments or projects? The answer was clear. Because he will do them anyways, he would try to use them as an opportunity to enrich his experience of living. And with that mindset, I started to be very intentional with how I behave in school and how I approach schoolwork. Heavy workloads became an opportunity to study efficiently, to manage my time better. A course that's frustrated me because I struggled so much with, it became an opportunity to learn how I learn as a learner, to ask better questions, to identify gaps in my knowledge. As I started to approach each one of my school tasks with intention and purpose and give reason to them, I started to feel like I was using them as a way to enrich my experience of living. And naturally, I was focusing more on the process rather than getting it over and getting to the finish line. And this kind of intentionality, I also carried over to how I use media. There were countless times when I pick up my phone to check a message, only to find myself scrolling through random videos. One video becomes 10, and an hour slips away. I'd feel empty afterwards, wondering, how did I let so much time pass by? John didn't get the time he deserved to live more, and that made me think again, how can I use media more mindfully and appreciate the time I have to live? Because think about it, 1 hour of mindless scrolling adds up to 350 hours a year, which is an entire 2.5 weeks. So I started to use media as a way to help me grow intellectually, to hear insights from people with different experiences, to get inspirations, to get motivations, to stay connected with friends abroad. As I started to take a moment to pause and think what I'm really getting out of when I click on the media, I started to feel like, similar to school, I was using as a way to enrich my experience of living. And I also carried this intentionality to my relationships. When John was alive, I didn't always notice the small ways he showed love. driving me to school, sharing cookies before my SATs, or bringing back souvenirs from his trips. His room was always next to mine, and I grew up with him next to me, so his presence and the interactions I had with him felt ordinary and just part of life. But now, his absence feels unbearably hollow. I realized how even the smallest interactions mattered. Whether that was a high five, hearing his laughter across the room, or just simply knowing that he was there. I realized his presence itself was the gift. And I deeply regret not valuing and appreciating his presence more when he was alive, because it felt so ordinary. And with this regret, I started to carry and be very intentional with the people next to me and the relationships I have. For example, when my mom prepares a meal, I make sure to thank her time and effort preparing the meal for me. And when I'm eating, I mindfully focus on the food in front of me without any distractions. When my dad comes back home, I give him the tightest hug I can give. When someone's talking, I put my phone down, I listen to what they're saying and fully appreciate their presence. When I spend the time to write letters and appreciate adults or friends around me to simply remind them how much their presence mean to me in my life. As I start to bring intentions, especially into my relationships, my life started to feel even more deeper with the connections that got deeper. And even if your relationships aren't perfect, they're likely acts of care worth noticing. Maybe it's your parents who don't always say I love you, but they show it in the meals they prepare, the drives they give. Maybe it's that teacher that goes an extra mile to support your learning, or a teacher or a friend who's always there for you. Have you taken the time to notice and appreciate these gestures? The presence we bring to each other's life is extraordinary. Because all of you are here, we make up the classroom. We give reason and purpose behind the work teachers do, why schools exist. And because all of you are here, I have the privilege to share my story. These interdependence that we share is a reminder that the words of appreciation can be a powerful reminder to each other of how much preciousness we bring to each other's lives. The ideas I've shared today, being intentional, might not be the first time you hear it. But as often as we hear them, they hold so much power. But because we're humans, it's not always easy to be intentional with everything that we do. It's hard to find meaning in that work that feels endless, to pause that scrolling when distractions are just a tap away, or to express gratitude when our schedule is so busy. And for me, even after losing my brother, it's still a daily struggle. But I realize it's that struggle and extra effort that makes it worthwhile. None of us knows how much time we have left, and that's precisely why it's important to live and not live like we will live forever, and we have all the time we have. Although we can't control how much time we are given, we can control the experience we create out of it. And please, don't wait for your next loss or regret to wake you up to the realizations I'm sharing you today. Take a moment today to hug someone you care, share a kind word, an apology, or simply try to reapproach that schoolwork you're waiting to get over with. Because in the end, it's not about how much time we have to live. It's about how we are honoring the preciousness of life through everyday choices we make. Thank you.